dum diddy dum diddy dum.
Hello and welcome to the Analyst Inside Cricket. After the first day of the third LV Insurance Test match, this podcast is in association with LV Insurance, the sponsors of the Test series. And, well, you know, bizarre is obviously the first word that comes to mind, but actually also there's a sort of deja vu about it too, because it's something like 10 years since that similarly bizarre day in Melbourne, Boxing Day Test match, when England were really up against it. Australia had won the previous test in Perth and were back to 1-1 in the series. And you really felt Boxing Day, Australia, they're going to really dominate. They were bowled out for 98 and England were 150 for naught at the end of the day's play. And today, you know, a sort of similarly extraordinary circumstance where Kohli wins his first ever toss, practically, playing against England with England at home. Understandably decides to bat first. I mean, we can debate that, obviously, but Ging gets rolled for 78 and now England 120 for none. So, I mean, just the whole series turned on its head in 6 hours.
Yeah, absolutely perfect day for England. I mean, it's a mugs game, isn't it? Trying to forecast what's going to happen next between these two sides. Yeah, England had an MCG day, a Trent Bridge day. I mean, think back to 2015 when they bowled Australia out for 60 and they were 274 for 4 at the close. Okay, they're not quite as advanced as that, but they are in a sort of equally dominant position with no wickets down. You know, great day for lots of England individuals, really. When you think about it, not least Hamid getting through and making a half century, had a bit of luck to get to his half century, that nick through the slips, and Rohit Sharma not able to grasp the chance, but you know, excellent day for him. Overton coming back into the side. I mean, when he's played for England, they've normally lost, but they've got a great opportunity here. And after what happened at Lord's on that last day, that sort of really something. It wasn't quite humiliating, but it felt a little bit like that for England. That India really steamrolled them to come back and do what they've done today. You know, is remarkable. Two hugely contrasting days of cricket, and of course, the other thing that happened today as well, which is worth noting when you think back to Lord's, that partnership on the last day between Bumrah and Shami, and what happens today, of course. Both out first ball. I mean, absolutely astonishing. Let's talk about the toss decision then, Yoz. So Kohli winning the toss. What I thought was interesting about it was how decisive Kohli was at the toss. He said, "Yeah, we're obviously you've got to make a decision. Yeah, we're going to bat first." And I really got a strong impression from him listening to his interview that he thought this pitch is going to be dry later on. You know, get enough runs in the first innings, and it's going to spin, and you know it's not going to be easy batting last. And Joe Root then saying, you know, it was a bit tacky. So I sort of got from Kohli that he thought the pitch was dry and going to get drier, and from Joe Root, who didn't really commit himself, saying, well, you know, it was a bit tacky and the overheads were favouring England. Of course, it is Joe Root's home ground. You said you weren't surprised that Kohli batted first.
Well, I mean, you know, it's the old adage, isn't it? If you win the toss, 70% of the time you bat first. The other 30% of the time you think about fielding first and actually still bat first. I mean, maybe 20% of the time and 10% of the time you put the other team in. Runs on the board are so important in Test cricket, although that's the as I say, that's the old adage. But Nathan Lehman and amongst others, the sort of, you know, the guru of analysis and kind of stats and doing what he calls the Monte Carlo simulator, putting thousands of matches into a processor and working out what is the best strategy when you win the toss in certain situations at certain grounds, has come up with, well, you know, in the past has come up with the fact that often it's the best day to bat is the second and third day of a test match. And actually the first day is always almost invariably difficult. I mean, reading pitches is terribly difficult. Even the guys at home often struggle to get their pitches right or, you know, read their pitches right. Often also you think, well, these pitches are maybe a little bit tacky to start with, but it'll flatten out. The best time to be batting will be the first and second day. If you get over the first hour or two, it should flatten out. But the history of Headingley is that actually it seems to get better over time. So batting later in the match is probably the best thing to do. And also, if you are going to bat first and you think it's dry and it's going to spin later, why only play one spinner?
Well, there is that to it, and he did say we did think about playing a second spinner, but of course I think what they like, and it's worked pretty well in the first two Test matches. This idea of playing four pace bowlers. I mean, it does seem incredible that they're leaving out Ravichandran Ashwin, who's the number 2 ranked bowler in the world. He's got over 400 Test wickets, and it's dry. They think it's going to spin later in the game.
And England have got 5 left-handers as well.
Yeah, and he did say at the toss, though, you don't know whether you're going to be batting first or batting second. It's one of those. Well, if you bat first, you probably think, well, yeah, we'd quite like to have a couple of spinners, but you can't guarantee that. Obviously you can't. So I wonder what Joe Root would have done. He didn't say at the toss. He didn't commit himself. He sort of said, well, it's a really difficult one. We're not too bothered that we've lost the toss.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, the trouble is, of course, he's got to factor in the fact that at Lords he won the toss and stuck India in, and they were 120 for none. So you put that into the equation. But I suspect, given the confidence he had in putting India in at Lords, he would have probably done the same with India, because he's probably slightly worried about his own batting strength, and also realises that England's strength is in seam bowling. So any slight advantage they might have, he probably invest in and field first. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was hugely relieved when Kohli decided to bat first.
But we're talking about the toss, but there was quite a lot of swing. I mean, swing was a feature today, wasn't it, as well? Yeah. We're not talking about sort of prodigious movement. There was something in the pitch for the bowlers early on, and of course Anderson bowled beautifully. I mean, we haven't got any words left for Jimmy Anderson. We've established that this summer. We've run out.
No, we haven't. But no, that you're right. We haven't got words left for him.
He did bowl.
Yeah, he did. No. I mean, what I was going to say is that we haven't got any words, except a word could be evolution, in that he's bowled better at Headingley the last couple of times he's been there than before, because he's been prepared to pitch it up a bit more. And again, going back to old adages, don't drive at Headingley in the morning early on in your innings. It's just one of those grounds where driving the ball, even a half volley, is quite risky against a new ball. And Anderson took a long time to take that on board, but now he's realised it. And 2 of his first 3 wickets were pretty much half volleys, but they just did enough to take the edge.
Yeah, KL Rahul's one of them, driving at Anderson, and Virat Kohli was another driving at Anderson. But he was just getting the ball to do a little bit away, a little bit in. Then the scramble seam, which way was it going to go? Was it going to go out or in? I mean, it's he doesn't give much away as well. He was right on target. 8 overs, 5 maidens, 3 for 6. Fantastic bowling, and it sort of broke open India's top order. Mind you, I've been watching a Test match over the last 5 days where Pakistan were 2 for 3, 2 runs for 3 wickets, and still came back to win the match. So you can come back from a difficult situation, and they got just the lunch. They battled through, and I thought they were sort of just beginning to sort of find their feet a little bit, India. And I thought that 4th wicket just before lunch of Rahane gave England such a lift. It was actually quite a big moment in the day. And then after lunch, we had that clatter of wickets. I thought India were going for the 67 all out at Headingley and win the game option. Remember, England, the last Test match was there. England was 67 all out, and they went on to win the match. I thought India go, we can be bowled out for 67 and still win this Test match, because they went from 67 for 5 to 67 for 9. And, it was incredible. Was it 4 wickets and 6 balls? It was like that Andy Caddick over against the West Indies when he took 4 wickets in an over. An absolutely rampant day for England. One of those days where everything you do just about goes your way. I mean, you must have had days like that, with Middlesex, and you must have had days playing for Middlesex where everything went wrong as well.
Yeah, and actually you had both of those instances or experiences in the day today, didn't you? Where every edge seemed to go through to the keeper or caught at slip, and then when England batted, nothing could get past. I mean, and it's such a we'll talk about the Indian batting. We'll talk about the England batting a bit later, but certainly you get it's a bit of a sort of forlorn experience when you find late in the day that you just can't seem to even buy a wicket, really. You're right, actually, about Rahane's wicket, because they felt that they'd seen off that sort of awkward stage, and it was Craig Overton and a little bit of Sam Curran bowling, and you sort of felt India could rebuild. And Pant kind of rather tamely got out straight after lunch as well. And suddenly, that's the thing about India. They are fragile still. If you can get that top order out, there's, and we obviously, their tail wagged at Lords in the second innings, but generally speaking, averages don't lie. And Bumrah is still averaging only 5, despite that innings at Lords. Shami is just a walking wicket a lot of the time. And so that proved today. So, if you break the back of that top order, you do feel if the ball's doing something, you've got a great chance of really routing them, which England did.
Yeah, I mean, when I did my prediction for the series for the BBC Sport website, I said 2-1 India. This feels like their great opportunity. Of course, it still could be 2-1. Is there, that's still very much on in this series. But one proviso was that India's batting has been fallible in English conditions, and if England can exploit that, then they can be successful in this series. And there's still a long way to go, of course. But I think we saw that today. The ball did a little bit, and there was that fallibility, and England were able to work their way through. And as you say, they got them, they got that lower order in under pressure, and it's such a different game, of course, totally different game of cricket when you're under pressure. The psychology of it is absolutely fascinating. We saw that Lords when England came out to bat on the final day. They really felt the pressure on them, because when the openers came out today, there wasn't quite that same pressure. Obviously, there is pressure, but there isn't that same intensity, because you bowl the opposition out for 78. You're on a high, and the bowlers suddenly have got to, for the Indian bowlers, got to try and back the team back into the searching a little bit, and then if a few boundaries go early as they did, then you think, goodness me, the lead is only 50 now. And it's only the first day, and so the psychology of the game completely different. So. Well,
yeah, I mean, the psychology of the game is it's a good sort of exploration area, isn't it? The psychology of the game is an interesting area to explore, because the way heads drop or heads rise according to the state of the game, and in India at the end there, their heads were dropping so low that they couldn't even take potential chances, and there were misfields and overthrows, and it's extraordinary how the body language just sort of sags, and your optimism just is expired. And that is the difference. The balance of power sort of shifts so much in those psychological battles, which England have obviously won. So seeing the 78 all out, anything more to say about that?
Well, everything England did worked for them. Curran got the ball to swing, didn't he, as well? So, people were saying Sam Curran should have been left out. Why didn't Overton play for Curran and Saqib Mahmood play for Wood? Well, Curran got in on the act today. 2 swingers into the pads, which is, that's his method for getting people out, isn't it? Getting the right-handers out, hitting the pad, getting onto that pad, or just getting them to play a ball they shouldn't outside the off stump and nicking it through. So he did well today. Overton, absolutely fine. Anderson, superb, and Robinson chipping in as well. And one other thing, Moeen got the ball to turn. Whether that was first day to turn, I'm not sure. There was a bit of turn early on, and I just wonder if England do get a big enough lead. We talked about it at the boss. I just wonder when the Moeen come into the game as it goes on as well. If England were able to get, say, a 250, 300 first innings lead, which is not absolutely impossible from here, not by any means. So, so much going England's way. But a century partnership, Yoz, England's first home century stand for 6 years. So there's a stat for you. First home century stand for 6 years, and also when a team has passed the other team no wickets down. That's happened 25 times in the history of Test cricket. The team who's done it have won 21 of those matches by an innings. So, so some good stats for England this evening.
Yeah, and also it's India's 3rd lowest score on the first day of a Test being bowled out as well. They've had a couple of 50s, I think, and this 78 was the 3rd lowest. So good stuff by England. And 120 for none overnight, which, as you say, it's the first century stand for 26 opening innings. The last time was Sibley and Burns away from home. So it's an astonishing number of first innings, first opening partnerships that have been pretty flawed since then. I think there've been 22 opening partnerships since Andrew Strauss retired as well. This is the 22nd version or formula. Sibley and this is the 22nd. This is the 22nd opening partnership since Andrew Strauss retired. So it's Hamid and Burns taking up the cudgels this time, and they finished up intact. And I suppose what really summed up the day was near the end of the play, in the last over or so, there was a little glided shot from Hamid. Actually, I'll start again. Right. So it's the 22nd opening partnership since Andrew Strauss retired. Amazing different combinations England have put out to open. The latest, Burns and Hamid, 120 partnership, unbroken. And I suppose what summed the day up really was the fact that Hamid got to 50, having played almost flawlessly, with an edge through the slips, which Rohit Sharma couldn't even get to, and went straight to the boundary. The Indian fielding sort of unraveling towards the end of the day's play. Just another example of the psychological shift. You can never have enough interest in cricket amongst children in the UK, with the game a force for good in getting children socialising and exercising. LV Insurance and ECB's £1 million Fund for Runs community initiative has provided an opportunity for Beacon Cricket Club to rapidly improve and grow their youth club. The Cornwall-based club, which is located within an area of deprivation, aims at utilising these funds to offer free membership for the underprivileged and also provide them with more youth cricket kits. They'll also be using the grant to improve the facilities, hire more qualified coaches and build a team for the under-11s, which they believe is one of the most talented group of players in the country. It'll be interesting to see how they get on.
So England at the close, 120 for no wicket. That's a lead of 42. I don't think we need your who's winning graphic this evening, yours, to tell us who's winning, but perhaps what might be interesting is what percentage chance India have of getting back in this game and going on to win the game, because England in such a dominant position. I mean, it's one of those days that you have so rarely in Test cricket. So looking at this, it's not just India that are really low on the graph. They're actually below the draw as well. So what sort of percentage is that? It looks like about
it's 4%, 3% for India, and 7% the draw, 90% England. And and really from about midway through the first hour, when Anderson had taken those 3 quick early wickets, the graph went from India 50% chance of winning, England 25% at the toss, and 25% draw. So India with the clear advantage having won the toss. Within about 45 minutes, the England and India lines had crossed over, and England were soaring and India were plummeting.
Yeah, and it's absolutely no surprise that the lines sort of continued to go in opposite directions, and then they sort of plateaued out by about the third hour when India sort of they'd reached a sort of idea, and it just sort of just continued, didn't it? That when England gradually began to build that first innings score, that first innings century partnership, the fifth time England's openers have gone past the opposition's score, and 2 of those were 110 years ago. So it's pretty rare that happens in Test cricket. Only the 5th time for England. So just looking ahead to this game, I mean, we've still got 4 days left. The weather forecast is pretty good. We think it might spin at the back end. What is India's potential way back into the game? I mean, it's hard to see them. I know they've got a very good attack, but you think England from here. And these predictions can make a fool of us, but it's hard to see England not getting at least a lead, very minimum of 200 really from here. They're already 42 ahead. They've got 10 wickets in hand. India's confidence you feel will be low, England's will be high. So it's going to be, you think it'd be a minimum 200, and England will be looking for in the region of 300, 350 if they possibly can. And if they get there, there's still going to be 2.5 days left in the game. India are going to need to score 500 or something like that in their second innings to stay in the game.
Which, of course, they did do actually at Headingley a few years ago. I remember 100 from Dravid and a Tendulkar and Ganguly. Remember, Ganguly hit a massive 6 and it landed on some bloke's head and cut his head open. And that was a phenomenal performance by that sort of Indian 3 Galacticos. But I think one of the key things was in England not losing a wicket in that last 3 or 4 overs, because it means that those openers are out there again in the morning to see off the early threat. It will do a bit more tomorrow morning, undoubtedly. It always does at Headingley. So to have those two openers who've got to grips with the conditions, still with their wickets intact, and one might go early in the morning, but it's such a fantastic psychological edge to have those two still at the wicket to walk out tomorrow morning, and obviously a psychological deflation for the Indians knowing they've got to go back and have another go at the England openers again. I mean, it's going to do a bit more in the morning. England just have to play with resources. And I think, one of the excellent aspects of that opening stand was not just that they defended the good balls, but that they scored as well. They hit some boundaries, they rotated the strike. They both received almost exactly the same number of balls, but there was a purpose to the way they batted. And it's interesting how, when Burns and Sibley batted together, it was almost like they becalmed each other. But somehow Hamid seems to, I mean, maybe I don't know if I'm imagining it, but he just seems to have energized Burns a little bit. Burns was looking busy and working balls just wide of mid-wicket for a single. Hamid was looking to try and, if it was over pitch, to try and work it wide of mid-on. Obviously, put away the bad balls that Ishant Sharma bowled to him. So, it wasn't rapid scoring rate, but it was nearly 3 and over. And that's so important because it just keeps the scoreboard moving, keeps the bowlers on their toes, keeps the field back rather than crowding around you, knowing that you're going to make a mistake shortly and you're not looking to play a shot. So it really has a big effect having that intent, even as an opening pair who are quite cautious.
Yeah, one thing that struck me is Hamid hit 2 offside boundaries fairly early on in his innings. And I was thinking, I wonder if Sibley would have hit those 2 balls for 4. And there's one of them he wouldn't have done it because one was a sort of squeeze away. It was a slightly risky shot. There was a shortish ball outside the off stump, which he cuffed away off Ishant Sharma early on. I sort of had that thought in the back of my mind. I wonder how Sibley would have played that. Would he have just left it and let it go through to the wicketkeeper? Yeah. And so it is that intent, isn't it? That ability to score through the offside. And actually what happened afterwards, straight after that, Ishant was bowling wide and he got hit for 2 fours and he bowled straight. And Ishant, Hamid was able to clip him through mid-wicket for 2. And so, that was the bowler coming to him after, you'd earned those 2 runs by hitting the 2 through the offside. And it was just a little small part of the day. But anyway, Dom Sibley's gone for now and Hamid has taken his opportunity, fantastically well. He did have a little bit of luck that we mentioned the drop chance, and also there were quite early on there was an inside edge just past his leg stump as well. But it's a great story. The renaissance really of Hamid after all his struggles. Great start, and the problems at Lancashire, and he gradually got his game together. And it was I think it was wonderful to see it. I think there's a lot of goodwill towards Hamid. Everyone really enjoyed what he did in India when he started his Test match career, and so tomorrow I think that feeling of goodwill will be behind him to try and move him towards 3 figures, and that of course will be his goal, and it will be Burns' goal in the morning as well.
And of course, as a result, we definitely should award the LV Insurance In With Heart Award to Hazib Hamid today, because not only for his battles in this series, but just generally to come back from the dead effectively, having had a really quite purposeful start to his Test career, then disappeared without trace at Lancashire, and having 2 absolutely woeful seasons and basically being sacked, and then trying to reinvigorate his career at Notts and finally doing so and sticking at it. And even after that first ball, horrible duck at Lord's, looking a little bit better in the second innings, but now really sort of restored to something close to what he showed when he first played against India in that Test series 5 years ago. So congratulations to him. And as you say, some purposeful shots. We can just see on a wagon wheel graphic here, 10 fours actually in that 50. So in a way, good signs that he was purposeful, but perhaps also a few more singles could have been had, because 10 fours out of 51 is it means there weren't that many singles actually in 113 balls. So that's just a little area that perhaps he can work on. I like the way that he plays the ball so late and drops it almost at his feet. And that's opportunities for singles, which I think will be recognised in due course as his partner starts to understand him better.
Look at all those people listening on the podcast won't be able to see it, but look at all those offside boundaries as well that we've sort of missed from an England right-handed opener. Why is there so much? Why do people take so much pleasure in offside play? I think it's probably more
It's called the posh side, isn't it?
Well, I suppose it is. Yeah. Here's just one thought, Jos, before we go. What a day for David Milan today. Recalled back in the side, 33 years of age. But he had to sit and wait and watch while that opening partnership was going. All that. I just imagine all that nervous energy that David Milan used up today. I didn't, hardly saw him in the field. Didn't field in the slip cordon, but big day for him back in the side. And if you're in England number 3, there's a reasonable expectation that you could be in pretty early on or any moment because of the way England's top order has gone, but not required. Just sitting there for 3 hours on his return, just sort of waiting, watching. I saw him doing some shadow batting at one point in their dressing room. Anyway, he'll get his chance tomorrow. But you think a player sort of used up so much energy without heart, but didn't do very much at all on that first day. Anyway, amazing day for England, really. So dominant. I wonder if India can force their way back in the game. So just one final question to you, Jos. Would England take a minimum 200 lead from here? If I offered you a 200 lead from here, or would they be much greedier than that?
Well, I mean, that means 278. So no,
yeah.
I think absolutely more that they've got to aim for 400 plus. They must aim for a 300 lead. And if they get that, there's no guarantee they'll win, but that gives them a massive opportunity to win. India could still draw the game, but if they get 300, so you're looking at another 200 odd runs, aren't you? 250 runs, say, to where they are now. That should take them most of the day tomorrow. Still leaves 3 days for India to bat, be bowled out, and England to chase whatever runs they need. So it's looking good.
Yeah. It also, if that does happen, it also allows India to get 500 and bowl England out on the final day. Anyway, that's the worst case scenario or best case scenario for India, and that's what they'll be looking at. But for them, a really, really chastening day. We'll be back to review the second day of this Test match when England will hope to have those 300 runs in the bank. Whether they will or not, well, we'll find out tomorrow.
Dum diddy dum diddy